What are white people going to do about this? And can I start discussing how we all suffer due to not promoting people who are really good at their job? I actually just wrote a whole book about this called The Unwritten Rules of Work, because we have affirmative action for the owning class and finger pointing for the working class. And if there's one thing I hope I do with my research and my work, help other working class white folks understand, racism is a tool to keep us all poor. Getting us angry at our entry-level jobs or low-level jobs, maybe even almost up to middle management, not really, having more gender and race diversity, that getting angry about that while the C-suite remains largely the same, and not just same in race and gender, in the same families, is missing the plot. So I'm Dr. Anna Kalschmidt. I research the unwritten rules of work for the working class and neurodivergence. I also look at race and gender intersections because you can't look at these separately, especially not in the United States, which we've built on race and gender unpaid versus paid labor divides. I'm a white person who grew up being told that the first time someone explained affirmative action to me, they explained it to me as it's like a bake sale, where if you're a white person or a man, you get charged more. And if you're not white or you're a woman, you get charged less for the same cookie. And that was the extent of my understanding, really until graduate school, because honestly, they don't even address this in a lot of undergrad, which is extremely problematic. And those are all tools to preserve wealth in the same families across generations. A lot of this is preserved with unwritten rules. And written ones, because white-collar crime isn't considered real crime because it's made by people with white collars, decide and enforce what the laws are. So why would you call yourself out there? A lot of this is why we see people who are idiots in power. They're not evaluating based on task performance. They're evaluating based on unwritten rules. And that's why I wrote a book about what those are and how they apply differently to different groups of people. Neurodivergence, people of color, women. All of this through the lens of this is what keeps the working class separate from the owning class. Every chapter of the book, I talk about my research, I talk about other research it relates to, and I give examples of real-life organizations who have gone down because of these unwritten rules, because they're not sustainable. And I provide practical recommendations at the end for staff, people, leaders, and HR. One of the most important recommendations I have for the book is frame of reference training. It's not going to be popular right now while the Trump administration is trying to undo personnel selection guidelines, specifically the one that says that you can't use a hiring test that you know discriminates unless you can prove that it is mandatory to get the job done and there's no other alternative. That's it. That's all it says. It doesn't say preferential hiring. Only people who legally get preferential hiring in the federal government are veterans and people with disabilities. There's nowhere else that requires that. Not even affirmative action. It's not going to be popular during this time, but I'm doing it anyway. Frame of reference training, which is about getting people on the same page on what you mean in your performance metrics to reduce the bias. Because if the same group of people are in power all the time, you have to make two assumptions. One, that they are inherently better and everyone else is less deserving. And in that case, you have a lot to unpack there. Or two, we are not evaluating things correctly or fairly. We need to start doing that. And I truly believe that if we evaluated based on actual competence and task performance, and we worked to acknowledge and minimize these unwritten rules, we would inherently see more colorful, diverse workplaces, because there is not one group that has ownership of competence, but there is one group that has ownership of the collar that decides what's rewarded. My book is linked in my bio. For anyone who's interested in taking a training on how you do this, I think it's especially important for managers and HR professionals. Training, and I'll let you know what the plans are for administering that law.